welcome to my podcast, The Magic Brain Kicks. It will be a wonderful English episode today, and I have a very, I would say, special guest, one of my famous guests I wanted to have in my podcast. It's Lubomila Jordanova. Welcome, Lubomila. Lubomila is CEO and co-founder of Plan A and co-founder of Greentech Alliance, and she is an Obama leader. We will talk about that, and an MIT under 35 Innovator and a LinkedIn top voice. And we will talk about climate change, the possibilities, especially on international level, what we can do and what her companies will do or propose to do. And I'm very glad to have you here, Lubomila, because for me, this sustainable issue is a very hard issue for me, because I myself, I'm a biologist, and did my doctoral thesis in marine ecology, and I did research on the effects of pollution in the North Sea on fish embryos. And there was no impact on all the science development. And of course, everybody said there is an urgent, but there was nothing. And therefore, I started to implement first sustainable management systems in companies. And I'm still working, of course, and I'm training sustainable managers and so on. And therefore, it's really wonderful to have you here to talk about today's possibilities. And of course, my first question is, what was the motivation or the background to start or to found Plan A? Of course, we have no Plan B. That's clear. But what was the background, and how did it start to create or to found Plan A?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation. And I think because also of your background, we can cover a lot of topics in maybe a bit more of a different context than the usual one that I have in the podcast that I participate in. The motivation behind Plan A was very simple. I spent more than a year educating myself about climate change in 2016, and I got to a point where I knew so much that I felt there was no other responsibility that I could take, but actually to really focus all my efforts professionally and, to be honest, personally, on addressing climate change. The event that kicked off this process for me was going on a trip to Morocco, where instead of surfing, I ended up cleaning beaches from plastic. And I went on this journey with the expectation that I'm going to be seeing beautiful nature, really well preserved, because obviously it's a vehicle that supports also the economy significantly because of all the tourism that it brings. But unfortunately, I was only to be shocked by the total disregard that was to be seen there. Everywhere, plastic, waste, and obviously all of this was going in the water ecosystem. So after that, I decided to really spend time on the side of my job, learning about the topic, conducting different experiments with data, and also interviewing people. Historically, I've always been in finance, so that was a bit of a shift that I did shortly after I learned about climate change.
Oh, I see. Yes, okay. And how did you find your co-founders? Because it's a German company at Plan A, yes. And so it was built up in Berlin, or what was it? Yes. Perhaps you can say some words about this founding process.
Yeah. So I found the company in 2016 when I was still living in London. And I decided to found the company in Berlin because through my investigation and all the learning that I did, I felt like London was not yet so interested in the topic of sustainability. It wasn't discussed as a concept, as a problem that also could be tied into the work of businesses, but it was rather the focus of scientists, of NGOs. And I felt in Berlin, because of the history of activism and also engagement with different causes, the social side of the city, there was a lot more awakening with regards to the fact that this was a topic which was going to influence the business side of things. And with this in mind, I set up a Berlin company. Nathan, who is my co-founder, he joined 2 years later. So the initial stages were me, myself, and I.
And did you find investors for your idea?
Not for 2.5 years. For quite some time, I used all my savings. My family invested in the business. I also had some competitions where I won some grants and support from female founder accelerators and so on, which were without any equity, so still kept the cap table clean, but not really, because the truth is that even though the topic of sustainability and emission assessment was maybe a bit more popular in Berlin, the investment scene was not necessarily prepared to put money into addressing this because it was still in its infancy. So it took a while. We had to educate a lot of people before it became evident that sustainability was also something that can generate business, can be considered as an economic activity, and can be and should be at the prime because of the negative impacts it can have on the economy.
Mm. Yeah, I think so. It's going on, of course. It's not now, of course. Due the Fridays for Future movement, there is some trigger, and everybody in the industry seems to understand. Yes, that it's an important issue. Yes, and what is the business case exactly of Plan A?
So Plan A has a software as a service platform where we support businesses on tracking their decarbonization and ESG improvement journey. We use a lot of data to assess where the company is standing from today's perspective in terms of their environmental, social governance performance. And then we automatically, using AI and science, prescribe a to-do list and different scenarios of how this to-do list can play out, where essentially they can see what kind of efforts and what kind of resources do they need in order to implement a net zero plan. We work with over 1,000 businesses, companies like BMW, Gani, Chloe, Vattenfall, and many, many more, normally in the larger size segment.
Mm-hmm. So they, with this software, they can count their CO2, and they can you give them some advice for reducing. And they can also do the report, the ESG report. Is it? Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. We consider the sustainability and ESG agenda of a business as something that needs to be embedded in the day-to-day of a business, which means that our product is covering all the different steps and key elements of this transformation that the business needs to go through, allowing for the progress to be tracked, for people to be connected throughout the company, but also its suppliers and other stakeholders, so that there's a unified understanding of what sustainability steps need to be taken, mm-hmm. what legislation needs to be responded to, because, of course, this has been changing quite a lot with the European Union and the UK government in particular placing new frameworks in action. And ultimately make this a repeatable case where it becomes this cycle of activity where you assess your performance, you improve, then you assess again, improve, and you report throughout the whole process.
Mm. Of course, so like the PDAC cycles, that you improve, yes. Of course, the issue greenwashing is a very important one. How is it possible to to prove or to say it's everything clear, and to find, especially in the supply chain, possibilities to improve the CO2 reduction or the improvement of CO2 management? What is there also some parts in the in the software, or how will be this process support? All right.
So greenwashing, maybe just to explain the concept for those people in the audience that do not know, is the concept of using sustainability as a marketing vehicle. So without taking necessarily any action, a company claims itself to be sustainable and uses it as a marketing tactic because, of course, at the moment, there's a lot of interest in the topic. So it's just, an approach that has been taken. Examples include fast fashion companies that would launch a sustainable line, but then launching one line of clothing, which is with 10 pieces of clothing, even though you produce tens of thousands of different ones, doesn't make you sustainable. It just is something that allows you to have a press release related to the topic. So the problem is really overwhelmingly big. And as sustainability becomes part of the agenda of different businesses, so does their discrepancy in understanding how to tackle climate change and sustainability, ESG issues, makes it quite evident that some are intending to improve, others are just maybe taking action so that they're in line with the trend. What we do as a company to make sure that we don't involve ourselves in these kinds of activities is, first of all, we are proactively selecting the clients that we work with. We're in this lucky position to be able to also say no to clients. We're not selling some neutral product that is some sort of piece of food or something that is essential. And through your interaction with the client, you don't get to know them. Rather, we have the chance to get to know our clients, know their intentions, see how deep they want to go on sustainability, and based off of that, know how successful we would be in being able to help them. The second thing that we do is that we have within the product policing mechanisms, making sure that all of the clients that we work with don't underreport, don't overreport, so that they really are clear on the level of accuracy, so that it doesn't end up that unintendedly they have not represented their numbers correctly. Mm-hmm. And the final bit is related to communication. We actually have, as part of the platform, the possibility for a business to assess its communication strategy to make sure that none of the statements that come out of them related to sustainability or ESG are greenwashing, which again is something that also can happen unintendedly.
Yes. That's, of course, a good three steps improvement. And on the other hand, yes, of course, we want to reduce CO2. We have to step forward because we have one level in a company normally, and then we want to improve this. And of course, especially the supply chains, they're international. It's important to have this, all these international possibilities done at the end. And is there something in the software or in your whole program to support companies to do that? Because that's a very important point, I would say.
Absolutely. And we all need to understand that international climate action is the only way forward, because individual companies or individual countries taking action in isolation of others cannot be successful. I can just give a small example of one of our clients, BMW, the big automotive company. For them, of course, the CO2 emissions associated to their suppliers account for over 60-70% of their emissions. Mm-hmm. In order for them to become sustainable, they need to work with these different actors from all around the world, from Asia, Latin America, from Europe, in order to be able to implement their own net zero plan. Which means that this alignment on an international level is the only way forward for them. Otherwise, they will fail on achieving their targets. Yeah. If you put it on a larger level, how does our support actually do this? So we have different reporting frameworks within the product related to how the calculations happen. So, for example, we use the international framework called the GHG protocol to calculate the emissions. We have standards like TCFD, EU taxonomy, but also GRI, which is the General Reporting Initiative, an internationally renowned framework for reporting. And by unifying in one place all of these different standards, we enable our clients to be internationally compliant and also to prepare for the future in a more collaborative way. The second and also very important element of the use of the platform is that businesses can collaborate with their third parties on the product. So you can work with your suppliers, with your investment portfolio, to essentially implement this agenda, and work as if there's a big project that altogether we need to implement, and that's the net zero strategy. So bottom line, international climate protection, climate action is incredibly important. How we do this on the product is through enabling the coverage of international standards, but also through enabling collaboration from stakeholders from all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Yes. And what is about the products itself, especially as you see BMW? Is it to find new ways to do the production itself? When we think about cradle-to-cradle processes, for example, then you have to do some different design process and to begin with the recycling, I would say. And is there also some issues there in your program?
The main point of our product is really to push for this change that needs to happen within the companies, for this transformation that all businesses essentially need to go through. With this in mind, our product is really practically focused on giving suggestions that, when implemented, lead to emission reduction, ESG improvement, kind of on a more higher level. We have made the product in this way because we feel like assessment is only one part of the journey, and a business that only assesses its own performance is not necessarily able to achieve, when it comes to sustainability commitments, anything, because ultimately what we need for our economy, what we need for our planet, is really being focused on the shift to become more sustainable. So ultimately what we push for is making sure that there's a deep understanding of how this can happen.
Yes. And of course, when you know the facts and figures and you change your mindset, of course, more sustainable, you ask different questions, and then they will come one step after the other to develop more sustainable ways of production and of the supply chain and everything. Yes. I think it's a different mindset or a different way of thinking. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And all or most of this is depend on technique, I would say, to involve more green technology. And therefore you have these Greentech Alliance. What is this?
The Greentech Alliance is a community now of more than 2,000 businesses that address different challenges related to climate change. We set up this community in 2020 to address the fact that COVID might have had really disastrous impact on the sustainability community, because the momentum that we were gaining in 2018 and 19, more so in the beginning of 2020, was really these baby steps that had to be taken, but were not necessarily really allowing for the proper spreading of all this innovation internationally and the scaling ultimately of all these projects and ideas. With the Alliance, we wanted to protect all this IP and also make sure that all of these companies have a fair chance of growing, having access to visibility, capital, and expertise. It's a community that is totally for free. Anyone can apply for it. And we select companies that are aligned to science. And once they're accepted, they can access a lot of investors. They can access a lot of different stakeholders that could be helpful for their sustainability journey.
Oh, that sounds really cool. And is this an international platform? Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of German companies, because I'm based in Germany, and we are based with all the other co-founders here. But by now, more than half of the companies are not from Europe. So this can demonstrate maybe how far we've gone with expanding it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I think it's wonderful, because I hear that Mrs. von der Leyen promoted Plan A in one of her speeches.
Yeah.
So it's an European issue now, and you would have also in France and in other countries you have clients. right?
We have clients all over the world. We've served clients from more than 100 different countries. We have offices in Berlin, Munich, Paris, and London. So it's an international team with definitely a European footprint at this point.
Yeah, I would say then it's wonderful to see how much you have done in from 2017.
Yeah.
Yes, until now. Wow. Really cool. Congratulations. And congratulations, you have been selected as the Obama leader for Europe for 2022. And that must be a great experience. I saw some pictures from this conference. What can you, tell the audience something about it? What was the kind or the issue, or were the issues, and what were the people and everything?
Yeah. So becoming an Obama leader is an incredible honor. We're only 30 people on a yearly basis being selected by the Obama Foundation to join a 6-month leadership program where we get to learn from different leaders from all around the world every single week for between 4 and 6 hours after work, and essentially go through very practical suggestions and advices and lessons on how to be a better leader. One that is more responsible, one that is more equality, diversity focused, one that is with awareness for other challenges that go outside of the scope of the day-to-day work that we individually do. The people that I met there are some of the most phenomenal and committed, honest, kindness people that I've ever met in my life. All of them have a different cause. We had people working on child marriage that actually were able to ban this in the UK, for example, while we were doing the course, which was incredibly massive milestone after the work of many years. There was other people working on investment in green technology. Also, we had people supporting activities related to tackling the issue of human trafficking. So a lot of different domains, a lot of different challenges that our society faces at the moment that ultimately were connected by the idea that all of us are working towards the improvement of the healthiness and also mental health and also opportunity for progress for our society. There was a few of us that were working on a for-profit model. I was one out of 3 entrepreneurs, which was also really interesting because it exposed me to the perspectives of activists, NGO leaders, people that work in the government. And through this, I really learned the importance of collaboration between all these stakeholders and actually how crucial it is when it comes to climate change for us to listen to one another, because there's a lot of fundamental steps that are being taken by governments. There's a lot of fundamental steps being taken by NGOs, by activists, and also a lot of crucial work done by us entrepreneurs. So all of these agenda, in my opinion, need to merge into one so that we're able to actually achieve a lot of progress with this big agenda that we have.
Wow, that sounds really cool. A wonderful network and, of course, great people, I would say. Very, impressive people. Yes. And can you give 3 or 2 issues or what are the main, topics when it comes to leadership, especially for the future skills for leadership, I would say. What do you think? What are the 3 important topics?
A key one that really struck me, and I think is incredibly evident in its importance for my topic and in my work, is the importance of the equal thinking and the respect for the intergenerational differences in leadership. We have historically had a lot of protocol leadership that is a bit more focused on having codes of conduct, and this is how things happen in life. Whereas now there's an emerging new line of thought, which is focused on a lot more vulnerability, a lot more openness, and being with your emotions out there. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. And what we learned also throughout the classes is that there's a lot of different perspectives on leadership, and ultimately regardless of what generation you represent, what mindset you represent, that is of a different leadership style than the one you have, what always binds you to others is values. And this is how you need to build a bridge to these people. If there's a discrepancy in how a topic is being approached, it's because you haven't found yet the connection in terms of values. Yeah. A second key learning that really struck me, was the idea of vulnerability as a key component to leadership. I think I've always been someone that is really emotional and always really open to demonstrate these emotions in front of my team, to speak about how I maybe am happy or not happy about something, to even cry if need be, because this is how I felt in this moment. But sometimes I felt ashamed about this because I felt like it was not allowed to be weak in a way. But instead of thinking about vulnerability as a weakness, you should think about it as a strength, because you have allowed yourself to be open to people. You've allowed yourself to connect to others, to remove the shield and the title and whatever it is. So this kind of gave me confidence that my style of leadership is also one that carries value. And the final one is a third learning out of many, I must say, that just continuously were coming again and again. And continuously expanded because the topics were being intertwined and so on, was the focus on unconscious biases. Unfortunately, all of us, due to our background, due to the comfort or discomfort we've been born in, the country, the places where we have grew up, or the communities that we've been influenced by, we have biases, and quite often we don't know and don't recognize them. And being cautious and actually assessing your privilege is something that is really important to do. And it doesn't really matter if you're the CEO of a company or any person within a company. Assessing this is really important because it makes you a lot better at communicating with others, and also a lot more understanding, I would say, for why some people take a certain action.
Yes, wow, thank you. And it's, of course, a long journey and an improvement journey. And I think it's very important what you said, no? This, especially the vulnerability and the bias. It's, of course, especially at the European it's often, when I travel to Africa or other countries, I often say, okay, yes, I am a European, of course, but I have to open and to understand the other culture and to have the eye-to-eye communication, and not to know everything better or whatever you can normally do in the former times. No, Absolutely. It's a learning from each other, and then perhaps improve possibilities for Africa, especially, for example. Yes. Wonderful. And this international impact, I think it's very, very important for the future that we have this. It's a global issue. We have to learn. We have to be, really, we have to learn to be really men and women, and to, support and to be open to create something for the future, because this climate change is a so existential issue that we have to learn these things at the end to survive. It's an essential problem. And it gives hope for the future, especially for the younger generation, I think. And we have also the responsibility to do this, or to prepare the ways to learn and to improve everything. And I think one issue, it comes to tech, is also the metaverse, the digitalization, the VR, last week I attended it was in one of these hubs here in Berlin about to create a new cockpit with VR glasses and everything. And so it's, of course, we have to pick everything to improve our world. Or unless I'm a biologist, I think we can learn from nature, from living systems. And is there some discussion in this founder Obama network, or with all these human issues and the tech issues and the international, of course, cultural differences? Can you say something about this? Future. I don't know if it is future science or whatever you call it.
We always ponder as founders within the tech industry on what is the role that technology needs to play in tackling all these big global issues in the betterment of humans, in terms of our health, in terms of our livelihoods, also in terms of our likelihood of progress, of success. And I think when it comes to climate change in particular, technology can bring a lot to the table. There is a lot of inefficiencies in the way we're tackling climate change at the moment, and they can be optimized through technology by creating transparency, like how we do with our software, but also optimizing so that you eliminate waste, like for some circular economy products, or by creating engagement, like some of the platforms that are built to connect people that want to work on sustainability issues and essentially need a community for that. On a larger level, a lot of the technology in its essence can deliver a lot of positive value. I personally think that this always needs to be combined with the assessment of how is a technology also in its externalities improving the livelihood of others, because maybe we think that one product is sustainable. Let's take the tote bag. We all think that this is the most sustainable way of carrying products, but in order for a tote bag, for example, to be sustainable, you need to use it at least 174 times. So what this means is, this is a very simplistic example. A technology is only useful if it is applied at scale. Same as if you build a software like ours, or if you use a software like ours, it is not great if you just log in it once and then essentially we don't have this. Thank God, our clients use the product all the time, but technology is there always good only if in combination with assessment of the externalities, assessment of what does it do good for the human, and also with, of course, this element of scale opportunity. Is this possible to be used by many, often at industry or like at the high level of consumption?
Mm. Yes, of course. Yeah, there are several things you have to put in mind then. Yes. And of course, it's a lot of scarcity there when it comes to this technique, like robots or whatever you think about that. No? And on the other hand, the nature or the rainforests, which are never be there at the end of the time when we have the technology. It's yes, but I think often we would say there is a pioneering role of Europe. Perhaps you can say yes, it is, or not. Or what do you think is the responsibility of the industrialized countries? Because often you hear from the developing countries, yes, UK, you have the technique, you have already the standards, and we want them too. But what do you think is the role of Europe, for example?
I think Europe can play a fundamental part in both addressing climate change and also, if I go back to your last question related to technology, scaling technology, there's a lot of robust, especially in the green tech field, thinking and also idea generation process that has kicked off a few years back in Europe. And what's really most exciting about it is that somehow the continent has embraced this. And we now consider ourselves as definitely pioneers in many of the green tech related fields. Europe has another benefit that is related to the legislation. The fact that Europe has such a robust sustainability agenda is a benefit, because that means that we are slowly but surely aligning to the same agenda, and we're talking about the same KPIs. We have a long way to go, but we're significantly ahead of every other continent that is on this planet, which makes a big difference. And the final element, which I find to be quite crucial, is the focus on this knowledge transfer that happens between the different countries, between the different regions, cities. This is something that does not exist in other places. And because of the European project, we have, in a way, an alignment of this thinking. Of course, it doesn't come without problems. We've seen also on a political level some disturbances and also misalignments. But ultimately, if you look at the young generation, Generation Z, also other ones, there's definitely this assimilation towards working as a European-minded person, being a European citizen rather than only belonging to your own country.
Yes. I also think so, especially in the Gen Z, it is like this, of course. As the audience perhaps would ask, what can I do? How can I support? How can I be part of the movement? Do you have some advices or some tasks? Everybody here who is listening to us, can do, for example?
Get a job in sustainability and green tech. I think at the moment there's a lot of different open positions in companies that are paying really well, like Plan A, where you can apply the skills that you have now, so that you essentially find your spot of working on day-to-day basis on this issue. There's no more prominent challenge that is ahead of us at this point, and we don't have a choice but really to take all the steps that we can to address it. And similar how you do with this podcast, where you open up people's minds about the role and responsibility that we have for sustainable thinking and embedding this sustainable thinking in our day-to-day. A second thing that a person can do is to preserve water. I think this is not spoken enough about.
Yes, I agree totally, yes.
Yeah, when going to be running out of fresh water across the globe in different regions faster, in others a bit later. But ultimately, we just are not mindful enough. Like our sewage systems waste 30% of the water along the way that has been filtered. There's a lot of heavy desalination processes that are really toxic for the environment and so on. And just by using your own bottle, and then also being mindful about the amount that you consume, which, by the way, is influenced also by the amount of clothes you buy. Because, for example, a pair of jeans is responsible for around 120 liters of water just in its production. You can do a lot. These two tips, if applied, I think we stand a good chance.
That's good. That sounds really good. And last question, do you have a vision, or what is your vision to perhaps 2030, 10 years or 18 years now, 2050? What do you think? What are the main steps, or what is your vision, what you want to achieve?
2030, there's, in my mind, two scenarios. On one hand, there's the scenario where all of these promises that we have made at the moment turn into dust, and we lose our chance of being sustainable because we continue to be absolutely misaligned in taking action, where one stakeholder takes action that is not ultimately contributing to the agenda of another stakeholder. We need to align these agendas in order to be successful. So the first scenario is when this misalignment continues. And what this would mean essentially is that we just essentially go out of this decade with less land on which we can live, an economy that is destroyed by 30 to 40%. So GDP goes down by that amount. And also ultimately a humanity that is in peril. The second scenario is one that is optimistic, where we have decided to take action and on all levels, as individuals, as businesses, as politicians, as NGOs. And we start speaking each other's language. We start taking action that is meaningfully reducing the emissions on this planet, meaningfully restoring the ecosystem of this planet. And essentially, as a result of this, then our economy also stabilizes and also our humanity becomes not anymore at stake. I never choose a reality because I don't think it's my job to do so. It is the job of all of us. And we all have a lot of exciting ideas about tackling this issue, or at least many of us do. We all are implementing projects at scale, maybe not all again. So it really is a matter of each one of us as an individual, as a business person, to decide what reality we want to spend our years focusing on building. And then we chat in 2030 and we see what happens. But at the moment, each day I go between the two realities. So I don't know what to say, how it exactly will look like.
Yes, it's really difficult. I although have times or days I'm a little bit optimistic, and other days not so. Yes, because there are many issues today, and yes, although on the economic way, and there is a war and everything, and therefore it's we have every single one who listened has to do and do some action into to create a future for the next generation, and to be part of the movement and of the action.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lubomila, thank you so much. It's a very impressive work. I wish you good luck for your companies. Companies, and of course, yes, here the Obama leader work. And yes, I hope you will see you in the future. And bye, and thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to my podcast, Magic Brain Kicks. I would like to invite you to share this podcast, to give a comment and a like on iTunes. And if you want more information, please visit my website under drmariahovager.com. Hope I will hear you soon, and kick your brain, and goodbye.